Welcome to Regional Plant Number 5, one of the wastewater treatment plants that the Inland Empire Utilities Agency operates. Now, if you live in Chino Hills, or parts of Ontario, then anything that goes down the drain in your bathroom or your kitchen sink is going to end up here. So once it goes down the drain, it's going to flow by gravity down the longest, slowest water slide of all time until it gets about 40 feet below my feet, where it then gets pumped up into these pipes behind me to start the treatment process. Now, this wastewater treatment plant can treat up to 15 million gallons a day of wastewater, which can fill the equivalent of 22 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So today we're going to take a trip through the treatment process where we're going to remove some of the debris, the food products, and all the harmful contaminants in that wastewater so that we can reuse and recycle the water for the benefit of the region. Now, this may seem like a tricky thing to do, but I've invited some of the people I work with that can help explain the process. Let's go start in the headworks, which is the first step in the preliminary treatment. Hey Michelle, how you doing?
Hi Jesse.
We're doing a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, and I thought you'd be the perfect person to take us through the first step in the process. So we saw the wastewater come in from the pump station. Can you help explain to everyone watching what happens next?
Absolutely. So this is our headworks building. The wastewater will come in, all the large debris will get stuck on these bar screens down here, and then a large mechanical rake will come up, take the debris out to the bin, and then send it off to the landfill.
Okay, so before we go too far, I want to make sure that everyone is clear. When we say wastewater, there may be a couple concerns there. Number one and number two.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about here?
That's exactly what we're talking about here. So number one and number two actually go right through the bar screens. It's all the large trash and debris that gets caught up in the rakes.
Have you ever seen anything crazy in this process that gets pulled out?
We see everything. So we see jewelry, we see money, we see Barbies, bowling balls.
Wow, bowling balls.
Bowling balls.
Okay, so what can they do at home to maybe keep that kind of trash out of the process?
Well, let's just keep the toilet paper in the toilet. All the rest of the trash, including those flushable wipes, could be put in the trash bin so they don't make it into our system.
Okay, good to know. So what happens to everything that gets through this process?
Everything that goes through actually goes into our grit chamber system, which we could go see next.
Great, let's go.
So once the wastewater makes it through the bar screens, it heads over to the grit chamber right here, where it starts the next process.
Okay, so what do you mean by grit?
So grit are items that are typically put down the sink. So food items such as eggshells, coffee grounds, and even corn.
Okay, so we actually have to remove that from our process.
We do.
Okay, is there anything that maybe they can do at home to keep that out of the process in the first place?
Yeah, so those items, instead of putting them in the sink, we should put them in the trash can.
We actually have to take it out of the wastewater. How does that happen?
With the grit chamber. So there's a giant paddle that slows down the wastewater. The grit falls to the bottom and they get sent over to a bin where it makes its way back to the landfill.
Now that's the last part in the preliminary treatment, right?
Right.
Okay, so what happens to the wastewater after it's done here?
It actually heads over to our primary process, so we could go there next.
Sure, let's do it.
So this is our primary clarifier. As you notice, it's actually covered to keep in the odor so we could be a good neighbor.
Got it, okay.
So the wastewater comes from the grit chamber over through the center of the clarifier, and it's actually held there for 2 hours while the solids sink to the bottom.
Okay, when you say solids, just want to make sure we're all clear here. We're talking number 2 now, right?
We're talking number 2 now.
Okay, got it. So those solids make it to the bottom. Where do they go from there?
They actually get sent up to our composting facility, which happens to be the largest enclosed composting facility in North America.
Very impressive.
Our fog also gets sent there. The fog floats to the top.
Fog, what exactly do you mean by fog?
Fats, oils, and grease.
Okay, so fats, oils, and greases need to be removed from the process. Once again, is there anything that we can do at home to keep that out of the wastewater in the first place?
That cooking grease at home, instead of dumping it down the sink, let's let it cool for a bit and then stick it in the trash can.
All right, make a note for next taco night. Okay, so the fog gets removed, the solids get removed. What happens to the clean wastewater that makes it through the process?
The clean wastewater goes over the outside of the clarifier and heads on to the secondary process. I have a colleague over there that can help you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Anytime.
Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good, and you?
Good. Doing a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, And just left Michelle at the primary treatment process. She said that you'd be a great person to explain the secondary treatment for me. So can you explain where we're at right now?
Right now we're in the aeration basin system, which is the first step of the secondary treatment process.
Okay, the aeration basin. What exactly happens here?
Here, we're in the biggest zoo in the world.
The biggest zoo. There's no animals here. What are we talking about?
Right now, there's millions of microorganisms doing work. The microorganisms are removing the contaminants in the wastewater by eating these contaminants. From the primary treatment, it enters into this aeration basin system, and it's composed of two zones, anoxic zone and an oxic zone. It starts over here in the anoxic zone where there's no air added. In this zone, the microorganisms are treated number 1. In the oxic zone, these microorganisms are treated number 2.
Okay, and in the oxic zone, we're actually adding air. That's why you see the bubbles here?
Exactly. That's why you see all these bubbles right here being diffused into this zone.
Okay, and so in each of these zones, the microorganisms are actually eating the contaminants in the wastewater?
Yeah, these microorganisms are removing the contaminants by eating the contaminants.
Okay, so microorganisms are now fat and happy. They've eaten the number 1, they've eaten the number 2. Where do we go next?
Once the microorganisms have flowed through each of the zones, they now enter the secondary clarifier by gravity.
Great, let's go there next.
Let's do it. Here we're at the secondary clarifier. As I mentioned earlier, the flow from the aeration basin system flows into the secondary clarifier by gravity into the center, where it disperses out and allows the microorganisms to settle to the bottom. You can see in the center it's a lot darker, as opposed to the outside, it gets lighter and lighter.
Okay, got it. So let me make sure I'm clear. The microorganisms are fed in the aeration basin. They're full, they're happy, they're heavier, so they sink to the bottom here. What happens once they get to the bottom?
Once they settle down to the bottom, we have pumps that pump them back to the aeration basin system where they continue to treat these contaminants in the wastewater.
All right, so we're just giving them meal after meal and they're helping us remove the contaminants.
Yeah.
Genius. Okay, what about the clean wastewater in the clarifier?
The clean wastewater, the clean water rises to the top, flows over these sharp pointy things, which we call weirs, and then continues over to our tertiary treatment process, which my colleague can further explain to you.
Great. Well, Stephen, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll go talk tertiary.
All right.
Thanks. Noah, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Jesse?
Good. We've been given a tour of the treatment plant. It's just at the secondary treatment. Just talking to Stephen. He mentioned you'd be a great person to talk to us about the tertiary side. So can you tell us what we have here?
Yes. Right here we have a tertiary filter process, and below us we have filters. And they're needed because the wastewater leaving the secondary clarifiers still have small solids that needs to be removed. And remove them by adding a chemical to help those smaller solids come together to form larger solids so that when the wastewater passes through the filters, it can be trapped and the clean wastewater can flow to the next process.
Okay, got it. So if I got this right, I guess I would think of it like you're throwing a handful of marbles at a chain link fence, right? If you throw it at the fence, some of those marbles are going to get through.
Yes.
But if you add something, say like a glue, like the chemical that we add,
Yes.
it's actually binding those marbles together. It's not going to get through that fence. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, so the wastewater that does get through those filters, where does that go?
It goes to our chlorine contact basin.
Great, can we go check it out?
Yep, let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay, Jesse, this is the chlorine contact basin. And here, this is where we inject bleach, but not the stuff you use at home. We use something much stronger.
Okay.
And we use it because we need to kill any remaining bacteria that's in the water that can do harm to me and you.
Got it. Okay.
And this tank right here, it winds back and forth. And this is needed to allow the bleach to stay in contact with the water long enough to kill those bacteria before we use it for recycled water.
Okay, how long does it have to stay in this tank?
It stays in this tank for at least an hour and a half.
So what does the water look like once it's out of the chlorine contact basin?
Well, that's funny that you asked. I have 2 samples to show you.
Great, let's take a look. Okay, so it's quite a difference. What is this sample over here?
This is the sample that's coming into the treatment plant.
Okay.
And this is the sample that's leaving the chlorine contact basin.
That's a huge difference. Okay, so once the water looks like this, what can we do with it?
Well, there's many uses for it. We can use it for parks, irrigation, groundwater recharge, and industrial uses as well.
Okay, and does all of this water end up being used as recycled water?
No, it does not. The water that's not used in recycled water needs to be dechlorinated before it flows to our Chino Creek, which then flows to our Santa Ana River, which then flows down to Orange County.
Great. Well, Noah, I appreciate all the information about the last step in the process.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right.
And that concludes our tour here of Regional Plant number 5. We started in the drains in your home, came to the wastewater treatment plant, went through every step of the process where we removed those harmful contaminants, ended up in the purple pipes behind me where we're distributing that recycled water to the benefit of the region. Remember, there's a few things that you can do at home to help us here. Those eggshells, the coffee grounds, definitely those flushable wipes. If you can put that stuff in the trash instead of down the drain, that helps us here. We hope you had a great time with us, and thank you for helping keep our water clean.